Well, it's a Monday night, and let's see here. What is Gold and Blue talking about? Oh yeah, that's right. College football. A little bit of realignment, a little bit of realignment, but we're going to focus on the Big 12 this evening. We have a pretty good guest on this evening. We've been doing pretty good the past few live shows as far as guests. My guest this evening is I think he's a funny dude. I think he's a funny dude. I watch his YouTube channel all the time. Great stuff over there. Great parody, and man, you've become a hit. What do you think about that?
If only, man, if only. But I appreciate the kind words, GBD. I'll always love being on your show or any other show when I get to talk to you, man. How you doing?
I'm great, man. Off season is always a little tricky, but I think we're maneuvering through it fairly well. So can't complain. No complaints over here. What about you? How y'all doing over there?
Doing great. Basketball season continues apace, despite not
Man.
having our two best players. And baseball's
Yep.
coming up before we know it. Excited about that. So
There you go. I think the Big 12 has the potential of fielding at least 8 teams, depending on if Texas Tech and Oklahoma can get it together. West Virginia's gotten hot recently, and they were one of the teams that were, possibly could miss the big dance. But we're sitting at I think 14-9. We just blasted Oklahoma. We got a ranked win over Auburn, so I think West Virginia's going to make it. So I think the Big 12 is going to be well represented in the big dance.
Huggy Bear doing Huggy Bear things, right?
Yeah, the one thing about this year's team is we can actually shoot.
Yeah.
That's been our biggest problem since the 2010 Final Four team. So we got a good shooting team. As long as they hustle on defense, then we can pretty much beat anybody. We have Iowa State coming up at home on Wednesday. That's the cool thing about the Big 12 is no matter how good you are, if you look at the Big 12 records, the road records for everybody is trash. It's terrible. It is so difficult for anybody to go on the road and win. The same Oklahoma team that we just beat by 30 or 20, however much it was, we lost to them earlier in the season. Whooped them by 20-some points at home, but we lose at Oklahoma earlier in the year. So that is the Big 12 for you.
Not to mention that Oklahoma team that is ninth in the conference and a fringe tournament team took Alabama to the woodshed, right? By far the best team in the SEC. Yeah, so the conference is a meat grinder, and it's fun. It's really fun.
I do like it.
It's a bummer that for the first time since 1998, TCU has a good basketball team. This is probably our best basketball team ever, but we just so happen to be playing in the toughest conference in the entire nation.
Injuries.
It makes it tough. Yeah.
With injuries. But I think you guys are going to be a tough out the big dance. I really, really do. So welcome everybody to Go to Blue Dude. If you're not a regular, if you're new to Go to Blue Dude, we talk about college football, sprinkle in some NFL every once in a while. Since my Bengals are knocked out, then you can forget about that. I am not talking about the NFL. I'm still mad about that game. But we'll also sprinkle in some college basketball as well. And over the past week, it's been a very big time roller coaster as far as conference realignment because last week I was hearing that the Pac-12 was in bad shape. TV deal looking to be like trash. Arizona State was fed up and they're ready to jump to the Big 12. Fast forward to this weekend, and I'm hearing that the Pac-12 actually has a TV deal ready to go and that nobody's going anywhere in the Pac-12, and now the Big 12 needs to be on the defensive. I don't think that the Big 12 needs to be on the defensive. I think we're stable as of right now. But I will say this. I don't think it would hurt to try to make some moves. And I think we have the right commissioner in Brett Yormark to try to do that. I know we're trying to get Gonzaga in basketball. Is there anybody out there that you think maybe the Big 12, it's at least, worth looking into to try to bring in and strengthen the stability just a little bit?
Well, listen, if you can pull Arizona State away from the Pac-12, you're killing two birds with one stone. Because that is
because Arizona has to come with them.
Yeah, well, Arizona has to come with them. You're hamstringing the Pac-12, and that's also a very valuable ad, I think. Not only from a regional perspective, but it's a very large fan base in Arizona State. And, I mean, not historically a hyper-competitive program, but a program that has the potential to be competitive. They're certainly recruiting really well right now. And, all of the stuff I've seen from the Pac-12 realignment wise has been very underwhelming. Like Tony Altimore, God bless him, friend of, I think he's a friend of yours as well.
Yeah.
He's
a
he
friend
was
of
on,
everybody's basically.
yeah, right. But he was talking about like, man, wouldn't SMU be a valuable add to the Pac-12? And I'm like, okay. I'm like, we're talking about SMU. I know you're not in a good way right now.
I indulged him, but I wasn't believing it for 1 minute. I mean, they can add SMU all day long, but I don't think that's going to help. I mean, it gets them a good footprint in the state of Texas, but that's literally about it. Their football brand is better than what it's been, but I don't think it's quite Power 5 level. I think the Big 12 grabbed all the Group of 5 brands that are capable of being a Power 5 level. I really do.
Yeah, as somebody who goes to an SMU game in Dallas about every other year, they ain't ready for the big time, man. This last year, any TCU fan who was there will tell you, it was sweltering hot at that game. They completely ran out of all beverage concessions in like the first quarter, and their stadium, just their infrastructure was just unable to handle like a barely capacity crowd in that high school stadium. Like it's. Exactly. I'm trashing on SMU, and I'm not even ashamed of it. Like they are not ready. They are not ready.
Well, they're known as Smug University for a reason.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Real reason.
Anybody who's been a TCU fan a long time does not get tired of beating them. There's a lot of younger TCU fans who are like, "Why do we still play these guys?" And the older people who are around in the '80s are like, "Because we like to beat them now."
There you go. Well, it's kind of this. People ask why West Virginia fans don't want to play Marshall. Well, for us, it's kind of a different approach. For us, it's a lose-lose situation. Number one, we're expected to beat Marshall, and we've never lost to them ever. 12-0, I believe, 13-0, something like that. And on the other hand, if Marshall beats West Virginia, then we would never hear the end of it. Right. So, I mean, if we want to play them every once in a while, fine, but not every year to where we give them a chance to be the underdog. And you never know. I mean, they beat Notre Dame this year. Mm-hmm. It does happen. I don't think it ever will, but you don't want to give them opportunity after opportunity because the odds eventually, catch up with you. So I am not interested in playing Marshall every year. I'd like to play them every once in a while, but not every year. No, thank you. In fact, I'll say this. This past year, if West Virginia would have played Marshall, especially in Huntington, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. That could
know.
have been a W for good old Marshall.
Yeah, it could
really could have.
Yeah, I know one Marshall dude who. So when I was at TCU and I was working for the football team, the head equipment manager at the time, who's now a player personnel guy, was a Marshall graduate and was the head equipment guy at Marshall for several years, like during the Randy Moss years and Chad Pennington years. And you want to talk about like the one team that he always wants to beat on TCU's schedule and whenever Marshall plays them is good old West Virginia. Like, so I totally know just how important it is to them. And I get that the perspective of what you're saying, it's a total lose-lose situation from West Virginia.
It really is.
Yeah,
definitely. But I understand people on the outside, wonder, hey, that's a football game played within the state. You're bringing in a lot of money. So I understand the argument for the game. But as a West Virginia fan, no, thank you. Every once in a while, yes. Every year, no. Quick reminder to people in the chat, if you haven't hit the like button, please do so. That's what really, really helps these live shows. And, hey, even if you're not watching live and you're watching replay, please hit the like button. It still helps the video YouTube algorithm. And if you have a question for me or my guest, Clint Foster, submit it through the Super Chat. It's the little dollar sign you see on the bottom right-hand corner. And it's a great way to help fund the YouTube channel because, trust me, in the off-season, listen, we always appreciate the donations, but in the off season, it's extra important because I'm just going to be honest. College football fans lose interest and the views go down. So anything to help keep the channel going, we greatly, greatly appreciate it. And of course, we will throw it on the screen, read it, answer it to the best of our ability. Even if you're making fun of me, I'm easy to make fun of. But you know what? I appreciate the support so much that I'll still read the troll attempt. How about that? So
speaking of realignment. Can I bring up something speaking of realignment?
Absolutely.
Okay. How about UCF Twitter single-handedly turning all of Big 12 Twitter against them over the past 3 days?
I didn't hear about that.
Oh, yeah. Apparently, I haven't been in the thick of all of these arguments, but UCF fans have just made themselves to be insufferable to the likes of Texas Tech fans and Iowa State fans especially. So, like, if you follow Cyclone Larry, he he got into it with UCF fans so much that the UCF official football Twitter started trolling him and being like, well, I guess this is our new rivalry, like Iowa State and UCF. But
I'm familiar with those, with that fan base, because I got banned because I vaguely suggested back whenever Matt Campbell was a hot name. I vaguely suggested that a big name could come get him if he keeps having success at Iowa State. Banned for that. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Iowa State fans. I feel like Tech fans and Kansas State fans are the most like rabid on Twitter. But yeah, Iowa State definitely has their contingent for sure.
But it was only that one Facebook group. I'm not lumping all the Iowa State fans in there. I mean, they have a great home environment, hostile. It's very tough to win in names. But this
My
one
friends and
particular
I are
Facebook
very
group
excited.
they didn't want to hear anything about that, and I got straight up banned. I was like, oh, okay, sure.
My friends and I are planning on going to Ames this year for our big travel game, and I'm real excited about it. I've been wanting to go to a game in Ames ever since we joined the Big 12, so I can't wait.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, the 4 new teams come in: BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. West Virginia gets to play all 4 of them in their first year, which is great. But I do think, and me and Kuz talked about this last night, I do think the Big 12 had a big-time missed opportunity as far as a storyline and making money. And we were all hoping, as a West Virginia fan, we were all hoping that they matched up Houston and West Virginia, which they did. But they sent West Virginia to Houston. I was thinking that the Big 12 would have been able to tell a better story and make more money and draw in more revenue and eyeballs.
Dana goes back to
West Virginia. I mean, that would have been the first time that he had, coached against West Virginia, his former team, hostile road environment, which, yes, they can do it again next year. But like they say, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And I think the Big 12 dropped the ball as far as that scheduling aspect. And I mentioned another thing. I'm setting you up here because I want you to tell me what you don't like as far as what they did with TCU's schedule. So another thing that I didn't like about West Virginia is they took away the home game that we were supposed to have against Texas. Texas is the closest thing we have to a rival. Okay. The series is tied 6-6. It could have been called the tiebreaker game, whatever you want to call it. Of course, Texas fans would have watched. And instead they kept the road game against Oklahoma. And, we've had some great games with Oklahoma, but Oklahoma has straight up dominated West Virginia. And I expect that to be a domination. We got our win in, so we can send Oklahoma off with a win over them. That's fine, whatever. But I think they're going to shellac us next year by 20 points. Is there anything they messed up on your schedule?
Well, let me first start by saying things that I do like. I like that our bye week isn't in September for once. I really like that. Yep. So we have an October bye week. Our schedule is super backloaded. So, I mean, that could be a positive, but it could also be a big negative if we're having any kind of injury troubles or anything. Like we have, I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say it's like Tech, Baylor, Texas, and Oklahoma all back-to-back there in the last 4 weeks. Yeah. And 2 of those games are on non-Saturdays, if I remember correctly.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, like we're playing Tech on a Thursday in Lubbock, which I'm super not thrilled about.
When did the Big 12 start doing that? I thought that was an ACC thing.
Yeah, that game has weirdness written all over it, and I don't love it. And then Oklahoma's going to be on Black Friday. So the one benefit to that Tech game is it's coming off of our bye week, as I recall. So at least we'll have a little extra time to prepare there. But Lubbock at night, that is not a fun place to be. Man.
No.
There's 3 stadiums in my experience that are never a good place for TCU to play at. And that is Lubbock, Stillwater. We have horrible luck in Stillwater, and it's because it's an extremely uncomfortable place to play.
I was right on top of you.
My senior year there. Yeah, right on top of you. And then West Virginia is the other one. West Virginia is a very hard place for us to win, especially if it's any kind of cold or night or anything going on that's uncomfortable.
Just ask Baylor. They actually have it first.
Yeah, for sure. So, but, overall, I mean, I'm pleased. I'm glad we're playing both Texas and Oklahoma. Any opportunity we have to beat Texas again is always very welcome by me. Right. And we really need to get a win in Norman. So hopefully this is the year that we finally get over the hump and do that. We haven't won in Norman since 2005.
Gotcha.
my freshman year in high school. And let's see, we're playing BYU, which is great to renew that Mountain West rivalry. We're playing Houston.
Forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be good. Getting the Southwest Conference USA flair back. So yeah, fun things. I can't remember. I know we're not playing Cincinnati and UCF. I can't remember if we're playing y'all. Are we playing y'all?
Yep. You get us in at home. You get us in at TCU.
Yeah, good. See, because that's another game. I mean, you say that the closest thing West Virginia has to a rival is Texas, and I think that is true. But I've always felt like with us joining at the same time and being like the two kind of like odd men out, I felt like there was always kind of a little bit of a kind of friendly rivalry.
And it's been close. It's been a close.
Yeah. It's always competitive because like I've never felt like I needed to be like, oh, I hate West Virginia, but I'm always like, man, that game is going to be a dogfight, and it's going to be wild and it's going to be fun, So I'm glad to have that game on the schedule too.
Well, I can say this for a fact because I was reminded on how much we hate Pitt last year. So the reason I said that is because there's really not a team that I feel that type of dislike or hatred for.
Sure.
So before I went to the backyard brawl last year and before we were able to play Virginia Tech, it's like the closest thing to disliking or having a rivalry would be Texas. And then I go to the backyard brawl at Heinz Field last year. I'm like, man, this is bumped up 10 notches. I forgot about this. Yeah. But I would say Texas is probably the closest thing to a real rivalry as far as, not liking one another, trying to get on each other's nerves, all that stuff. But the other two that I would say friendly rivalries would be TCU and Baylor, Baylor too. I think both of you guys are pretty close when it comes to a friendly rivalry. And then I hate playing at Iowa State.
Yeah,
I hate it. Can't stand it. Even when we're having a really good season, we go to Iowa State and get the brakes beaten off of us. And I don't like playing there. But it's not really a rivalry. It's just like I don't like playing at Iowa State. And here recently, Texas Tech has actually had our number, especially with Neil Brown. I remember in 2021, we were definitely the better team, but for whatever reason, we came out really, really flat in the first half, scored 0 points, come back to tie it at 20, but then Texas Tech kicks a last-second field goal in the second half. The only points they scored in the second half was the game-winning kick, and I'm just like, you have got to be kidding me. So this year we get Texas Tech at home, but I think we both agree on this, I think Texas Tech is the sleeper. I have Texas versus Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship. Last year I had Kansas State as a sleeper, and this year I have Texas Tech.
Man, I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, we have agreed about that on the past. But Texas Tech is a huge sleeper team in this league, absolutely. But a Texas Tech championship would be that'd be almost as bad as a Baylor Texas championship for me. That would be the worst case scenario. Can the earth please open and swallow them both? But hey, how do you feel about the Cincinnati series? Do you think that could develop into a rivalry for West Virginia?
It could, just because of proximity, but this is how I feel about it. I was hoping that we would get Houston at home and go on the road to Cincinnati, because I didn't, we get Cincinnati at home, and a lot of people are like, that's pretty cool because you're close. I'm like, yeah, but I would have rather gotten Houston. So maybe it can develop into something, but going into it, I don't feel any type of emotion. I really don't. I'm glad that there's a team close in proximity. Now, if they were like a Virginia Tech or a Pitt, something like that, oh man, yes, I would be hyped.
Well, there's history there.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a little bit of history with Cincinnati, but not enough to get me really excited. But if the Big 12 stays intact and West Virginia and Cincinnati play each other, a lot, then that will develop into a pretty good rivalry just because of the distance. So I don't know how excited the fans are going to be for that game, but it should be interesting, to say the least. We'll see about that. I want to ask you something, because whenever I did a live show, what was it, Friday night, I believe, and this was whenever I found out. Well, I don't know for sure still, but from what I'm being told, the Pac-12 has a TV deal, right? And as of right now, nobody's leaving. The biggest linchpin in that is the research money. The TV deal ain't worth crap, but because of the research money, nobody's leaving. And on top of that, the Pac-12, I'm hearing, is thinking about expanding as well, like San Diego State, SMU. But on top of that, people have brought up maybe trying to get some teams out of the Big 12. And believe it or not, it surprised me. And I don't see it happening. This is not a prediction. That's not what I'm saying. It surprised me. I just want to get your feelings on it. How would you feel if the Pac-12 came and knocking, TCU was mentioned, and TCU went to the Pac-12? How would you feel about being in the Pac-12?
I mean, we've got college football should be about regional rivalries, right?
Yep.
And about regional competition, right?
Yep.
We spent forever. We spent from 1996 until 2012 wishing that we were back in a conference like the Southwest Conference. Even as bad as the Southwest Conference was for us for several decades, it was
a good conference.
Well, it was so special to be able to travel to every single game, and you knew people who rooted for all the teams, and all the games meant something.
Well, it's just like we missed the Big East. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Of course you do. Like, now that we're back in a conference with, I mean, I despise Baylor, right? And Texas Tech, I have a lot of friends from Tech, but I sports hate Tech, right? And it's so fun to play Oklahoma State, and now we're going to play Houston again. And I don't want to go back to Mountain West days of traveling 2 time zones away and playing some team that okay, sure, they're ranked, but I don't care about this game. I care about it insofar as TCU getting a win and getting closer to this season being something special, but there's not the same week-to-week excitement, week-to-week intrigue. I think we're building something really special with the Big 12 here, and it's such a natural fit for us. I can't imagine myself wanting to be anywhere else.
Yeah, that it wouldn't make any sense in my opinion, but it would make sense for the Pac-12 as far as trying to get a footprint in the state of Texas. And TCU does have the academics and the research and all that stuff. Don't have AAU status, but that doesn't really matter in the Pac-12. That matters for the Big Ten. Just wanted to get your opinion on that. If you look at the map, you see the Pac-12 and then TCU. But if you look at the map, the Big 12 and West Virginia,
right? Yeah,
kind of relate. That's why I brought it up. It's kind of relatable. People will ask me, why do you hate the Big 12 so much? I never said that. Never ever did I say that I hated, disliked, anything like that. I think the Big 12 is a great conference. In fact, I'm hoping that the ACC does dissolve. I do. Yeah. And I'm hoping that the Big 12 can get strong on the east side as well. So I'm almost glad. No. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I am glad that it fell through, that nobody's coming from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, because for us, that just creates more travel issues. Now, having said that, I understand. Listen, I understand that sometimes the interest of the Big 12 is going to, be a friction for West Virginia, because what's good for the Big 12 could be adding teams on the west side. But it's not good for West Virginia because West Virginia is all the way on the east side. So as long as I'm good with it, as long as it's evened out, as long, if the Big 12 is going to get teams from the Pac-12, then the Big 12 has to get teams from the ACC. Now, whether it's now in the 5 years, teams vote to dissolve, or it's 2036, just eventually get teams on the east side. And honestly, I think it works out for the Big 12 as far as a West Virginia fan goes, because the bigger brands in the ACC are going to be gobbled up by the Big Ten and the SEC, but the brands that are going to be left remaining are going to be your Syracuses. I love playing Syracuse, not in the Dome, but I love playing them. Pitt, Big Ten's not taking Pitt, SEC's not taking Pitt. Bring in the backyard brawl, lock it in as a conference game, of course. Louisville. Even though it's not an extended amount of history, we have some good history. Like the games we have with Louisville, absolutely epic. Triple overtime,
Same with
stuff
TCU.
like that.
Same with TCU and Louisville.
Exactly. Y'all have history with them as well.
Yeah, from Conference
Virginia
USA,
Tech
man.
or Miami Hurricanes. So even the leftovers would still fit really, really well with the Big 12. So I'm really hoping that happens. I'm not worried about the Big 12 getting, a North Carolina, a Clemson, a Florida State. Would it help in brand strength? Yes. But what would that really do for matchups?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see, other than the whole matchups you would never see otherwise. Well, we get that with bowls, and look what happens. 9 times out of 10, they're not. Oregon State, Florida. We would never seen that otherwise. Yeah, and Oregon State blew them out just like we thought they would. So I'm not buying that argument. I want matchups that interest people, that mean something, and honestly, bragging rights. What's happened to bragging rights?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If TCU goes to the Pac-12, there's no bragging rights. I don't live near anyone who goes to Cal. I don't live near anyone who goes to Washington, right? But I got a bajillion people that I know that went to Tech and Baylor and Oklahoma State, So it's just a whole different vibe. And yeah, I would love to I would love for West Virginia to have some more travel partners, because I have always felt bad for y'all kind of out there on an island. And so that's why I'm really hopeful. I'm really hopeful that Cincinnati does kind of develop into something. There's some kind of wild, I don't know, water bottle throwing, couch burning, something that happens in that game.
I'll do it.
That
generates couches, man. Let's do it.
Some animosity.
Hey, you light your water bottles on fire, and we'll throw our couches. How about that?
Yeah. There you go.
What about the proposed Texas pod by John Teal? Appreciate the $5 donation, buddy. Says TCU, SMU, Rice, UTSA, San Diego State, and he's saying Cal and Texas. Excuse me. TCU, SMU, Rice, UTS, San Diego State, and Fresno State. Imagine the Texas pod versus the California pod. The only problem with that is the only good name in the Texas pod is TCU. Now, if the Texas pod looked like this, TCU, Texas Tech, and Baylor, and maybe throw in a Houston, that would be a great Texas pod.
Yeah, that's more enticing. This, to me, is almost word for word 1996, Southwest Conference dissolves, TCU, Rice, SMU, and Houston, y'all go play by yourselves in the WAC, right? No. That gives me the shudders just thinking about that. It's like,
I don't like it either.
Here you are with the leftovers, you know what I mean? That's triggering. Trigger warning, John Tell.
If you're going to create a pod like that, you want good matchups. But you know what? I do understand the Pac-12 going after San Diego State and Fresno State, because they did lose USC and UCLA. And grabbing those two brands doesn't really help. Well, it doesn't make up. It doesn't make up for those losses. It softens the blow maybe a little bit, because they lost that presence in the southern part of the state of California. So, I would say yes, San Diego State a must get, and then Fresno State definitely. SMU, other than the Texas footprint, just makes absolutely no sense to me. Absolutely, unless you're bringing in another bigger brand to go along with them, like a TCU, but I just don't see that happening. And I don't think TCU fans would like that at all. Could you imagine getting up for a TCU versus Arizona State, which would be your closest game? TCU versus Arizona State in the desert.
I mean, we've had to get up for worse, honestly, in the past.
I hear you. I will say this. I think one thing that's working against the Pac-12 is the time slot that they're in. Mm-hmm. And, I know to me it seems like duh, but they have the reasons as far as the research money and all this other stuff goes. But as far as football exposure, I think it would make total sense for the Pac-12 to have a merger with a conference like the Big 12 or the ACC, just to give them more TV exposure, because they're stuck with the Pac-12 at night. And unless that matchup is a really, really good matchup, like Oregon, USC, or USC, Utah, nobody's staying up till 1 a.m. to watch a football game like that. So the advantage that they used to have, which was the time zone, is now a detriment. And that's one of the things why TCU going to the Pac-12 would be absolutely horrible. The time slots that you guys would be placed in would be absolutely ridiculous. How would you feel about this? What if the Pac-12 and the Big 12 had a merger, and it would benefit the Pac-12, but would it benefit the Big 12?
Well, whenever we thought the Big 12 was crashing and burning, that's the direction I thought we were heading.
Me too.
I mean, whenever I made that Big 12 emergency meeting sketch, what was that, like 2 years ago? And it's like, well, what's going to happen to Kansas State? I guess they're going to mid-major, and what's going to happen to West Virginia? Hopefully ACC picks them up. But I mean, I'm very pleased with the way things have turned out for the Big 12. I think we've got a very fun, if nothing else, a very fun conference for the future, and a very competitive conference. But I always assumed that it was going to be, Tech, Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State going to the Pac-12, and then, maybe Kansas and Iowa State get lucky and get absorbed into the Big Ten, and then that leaves, well, who the heck knows for West Virginia and Kansas State, right?
Yeah.
But I thought that's the direction we were heading.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know this. Number one, Texas was really close to joining the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Very close. I think it was the go-around like a decade ago. I mean, I'm talking like a day. Like they were about to sign, and they changed their mind in the last second. The other thing that I didn't know is that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State applied to the Pac-12 together, and the Pac-12 turned them down. I knew that Texas was a big brand, but I didn't realize that they were a make or break brand. Now I'm thinking, and no offense to Oklahoma fans, because it shocked me too that happened. I'm like, why would the Pac-12 not take Oklahoma and Oklahoma State? Those are two massive, massive brands. Texas wasn't involved. So my thinking now is the only reason that Oklahoma is making it into the SEC as far as an invite is because they're coming with Texas. Could that be something that could be hanging over their head the entire time they're in the SEC?
Yeah. I mean, Lord knows they aren't going to do anything of note in the SEC. But, I mean, that's just another reason why Texas is just so utterly hateable, right? That they can be, at best, mediocre for, like, the past 20 years and be, like, the make or break brand of, like, whether or not Oklahoma goes to the Pac-12, right? Like, come on. Like, why are all these T-shirt fans that like Texas for some reason dictating, like, the entire college football landscape? It's ridiculous.
Exactly. Think about it this way. Conference realignment can be totally, totally different because of Texas. What I mean by that is the reason why Texas A&M, Nebraska, Colorado, and Missouri, one of the main reasons those four teams left the Big 12 is they didn't want to be in the same conference as Texas.
Yeah.
Okay? So imagine if they didn't do what they do and piss everybody off and make everybody mad and politic this and politic that. Those four teams stay. And then on top of that, they don't go to the SEC because I think the Big 12, if that doesn't happen, would actually attract – I think the Big 12 could actually turn into what the SEC is. One team has affected conference realignment that much.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something for Texas fans to brag about. Oh, man, our brand's that big. We're that important, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but your arrogance has really messed things up. I mean, the Big 12 has gotten picked apart, and, conferences look really, really weird now. And you can really boil it down to one brand, and that is the brand of Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it's not the first conference they've screwed either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, heck, they were the ones driving the bus with the Southwest Conference falling apart. I mean, Arkansas, part of it was Arkansas was being like, screw you guys, I'm tired of this, and going to the SEC. And then it's Texas and A&M thinking they're too good for everybody else, right, and joining the Big Eight.
Yep.
But, yeah, it's just – I mean, I do feel like with the way the money has gotten so big in college football in the last decade, and I feel like the suits were going to eventually drive conference realignment, regardless of what Texas did. But Texas has been a major catalyst in all of the just chaos. I think you're absolutely right.
Oh, yes.
That. Yeah.
Absolutely. But you mentioned the money thing. Well, guess who has some of the most money in the entire nation? So it's kind of, in the same pot type of deal. So, I mean, what about playoff expansion? Do you think that's going to help the Big 12, or do you think it's just going to, be able to help the SEC and Big 10 hoard more teams into the playoffs? Do you think the Big 12 will be able to get 2 or 3 teams in?
Okay, yes and yes. Will the Big 12 be able to get 2 or 3 teams in? I don't know.
We'll say 2. We'll say 2. 2.
I mean, under the right circumstances. Well, yeah, I feel like this year, well, I'm kind of shooting from the hip, but I feel like this year you could have had TCU and Kansas State in a 12-team playoff, I think.
Because of the Big 12 championship result. I would agree with that.
Yeah, because you have the Big 12 champion is an automatic bid.
Right.
And then TCU being undefeated otherwise. Yeah.
Right.
So you get 2 in that way. And that would actually be good because the biggest thing that me and my friends have been talking about ever since the Big 12 championship got added back is we were like, this is going to screw somebody over. The Big 12 is going to have a team that's either got one loss or is undefeated. They're going to lose in the championship. They're going to find a reason to exclude them. And we thought that was going to be us this year. I mean, because we're like, oh my God, they've kept us out before. They're going to keep us out again. Like, you know,
But then
TCU fans,
USC
longtime
lost.
TCU fans have abandonment issues in a major way. Right?
No, I completely get it, man. I really do.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like, so I think if this scenario was to play out in the 12-team playoff, yes, we could get 2 in. But yeah, I think it's a great thing. I don't think it's ever a bad thing to give more teams an opportunity to play for a national championship, right? I mean, it's not like, oh, there's 12 teams in the NFL playoffs. Guess who's not interested, right? You know,
like exactly, man.
Yeah.
The only people that are complaining about expansion are the teams that are there year in and year out.
Yeah,
Alabama fans are complaining about it. Georgia fans are complaining about it. Ohio State fans, that makes it tougher on us.
Yeah.
Well, for Ohio State, maybe it needs to be tougher on you because the Big Ten
you have one game every year.
Pretty shaky here recently. So I mean, maybe you need that extra challenge. So the argument actually against them, if they want to throw that argument out there. And speaking to your point about TCU missed the playoffs because they lost to Kansas State, honestly, I do think that they're one USC victory away from not making the playoffs. I really do. I think they would have put in, let's see, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and USC.
Yeah, they would have. Yeah. So thank you, Utah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you would have had an argument against Ohio State, but Ohio State always gets the votes because Ohio State has one of the biggest fan bases, and they make the playoffs the most money.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? Brand. I will give Ohio State credit because after they got shellacked by Michigan in their own house, I was like, man, they do not deserve to be in the playoffs. And then they did hang in there against Georgia. So I do think that they proved
Those
their
sons
worth.
Of guns.
And you're like, man, and honestly, that field goal, man, I was hoping it would go through. I'm not a Ohio State fan, but I'm telling you, I have gotten.
No, I despise Ohio State, but I wanted to play
too.
them more than I wanted to play Georgia. Especially
but
not
Georgia fans
Georgia.
have been dogging me the past year. I mean, absolutely. I mean, me and Georgia fans have developed a nice little rivalry going on. And whenever it missed, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to. Because no offense, TCU, I knew you were going to lose that game. I did. And
I think Georgia would have
missed. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to hear it for another 365 days. You got to be kidding me.
After the result of that Ohio State game, Georgia would have beaten any team in the nation by 30 points. I'm convinced. I mean, because they had all the motivation they needed to come out and just absolutely make a statement. It was I've said this before. I think the thing that hurt TCU was depth because you guys had to go out and give your 110% against Michigan. You got the 2 pick sixes. You got all the bounces that you needed. And I just think you guys were out of gas. Because if you watch TCU by the end of the first quarter, you guys were tapping out. It was just Georgia had too much depth, and you guys were zapped. You really dominated. Your energy, your emotion was all invested into that Michigan game. Yeah, and it was just the energy wasn't there. Yeah. I mean, and I think there's a big part of it too that, I mean, we were just so thrilled to be there. Like, people want to dog on TCU and be like, oh, aren't you embarrassed that you lost 65-7? I'm like, no. I watched my team play in the national championship. That's something that I dreamed of being able to do my entire life, my entire 32 years of life, and I got to do it. And like, that's pretty much where every TCU fan fell on the subject. And I think where the team was like, we're at the national championship. I mean, is this where ultimately we want to hang our hat that we got to the national championship and lost? No. But like, this is for someone who has witnessed the entire TCU climb, it cannot be overstated how big of a deal that was to finally be there. Oh yeah. And I think the emotion was completely like, we poured 110% onto Michigan, and Georgia was motivated as all hell to beat the tar out of us. Perfect storm of badness. And I just wish we could play Ohio State, but maybe some other time.
Well, I can relate because back in '93, I can back all the way up to '88 because that was my first year at being a West Virginia fan. We get the national championship and lose to Notre Dame because of Major Harris' injury. As a little 6-year-old boy, I'm going, man, I have a great team to pull for. I thought that was something to get used to. I didn't know that, that was few and far between as far as chances for West Virginia. Then 93, we go undefeated. We get the Sugar Bowl. And even though I was mad that we weren't invited into the national championship, we still had a chance to win a share of the national championship had we beat Florida. What happens? We get slaughtered 41-7. 41-7, Sugar Bowl, national championship by Florida. I'll never forget it. That was the worst feeling I had until 2007. 13-9 happened against Pitt. So I've had my fair share of terrible, horrible moments that I would like to forget. But I'm hoping that West Virginia can do it one day, and it'll make all that pain worth it.
Yep. That's what we're all clinging on to. That's why we keep doing this to ourselves, GBD. We're all masochists. We're sadomasochists. Which one of these days it's going to pay off.
But that's the reason why I know I come off as a big-time complainer when it comes to Big 12, but the reason I do that is because you do only get so many chances, and it does have to come, when everything comes together. And for West Virginia, there's this extra layer of being in a conference where geographically you really don't fit, and the road games are extra tough, and the traveling is, a little bit more or a lot more in some cases. Yeah. So to me, I feel like West Virginia's chances versus like you guys, a TCU or a Baylor or an Oklahoma or a Texas, whatever, are lower because we have that extra layer of the travel and the geography and all that stuff. So I'm hoping we can get over that, and that's why I keep saying I'm hoping the Big 12 can eventually add to the east side of the conference. That would help us out so much. I know that you can't just play everybody on the east and that's it. You'd still have to play some teams on the west, but it would still help with our scheduling. Yeah, and I think the passion would be there too.
Yeah. I mean, surely y'all will be playing UCF and Cincinnati every year, I would assume. And hey, yes. And here's something I'm hoping for y'all as well. I mean, I admittedly do not follow West Virginia recruiting very well. I apologize. But it seems like when y'all have been at your best, y'all recruited Florida very well. So I'm hoping for y'all's sake that maybe that UCF game every other year can kind of get you some inroads back in Florida again and pick up some of those good Florida players. That's
definitely a pipeline that West Virginia has. So playing UCF could help solidify that pipeline as well. That's a good point right there. I didn't think about that. I think Clint's internet dropped on him all of a sudden. That's all right. Sometimes it happens. I was talking to him before the show went live. There was 2 years where we didn't have one single internet provider that ran any type of anything down this one particular road that I live in. Finally, there was a company named Blue Ridge that ran fiber wires, so I have great internet, but I truly understand his pain. He's a great guest, which, by the way, y'all go check him out on YouTube when you get a chance. Clint Foster. He has a lot of comedy, funny stuff, parody, role playing, all that stuff, and it's really, really funny. And I'm very happy that I was able to get him on the show. We will definitely have him on the show in the future, and hopefully his Wi-Fi will be a little bit better. I have a video idea for tomorrow that I want to run past you guys, and it was spurred on because of a video that I watched from another channel. And the video that I watched was about the troubles, and this is going to sound crazy, off the wall, whatever, but you know how I am, going to blue. That's how my brain works whenever it comes to college football or sports in general. So I watched this video about the issues that the Chicago Bears, Chicago Bears, I don't care even just a little bit about them, but the Chicago Bears have had issues with Soldier Field since they started playing there. I mean, very, very rocky history, and including that horrible renovation that they did. New Soldier Field looks like a spaceship. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Anyways, the reason I mentioned the Chicago Bears is because the former Big Ten commissioner, Kevin Warren, is now the Bears CEO, which is the first person not in the McClaskey family. Well, not the first, the second person, the second person, not a member of the McClaskey family, to be the Bears CEO. And from what I'm hearing, the Big Ten wanted this. The Big Ten wanted Kevin Warren to take that job. Number one, his approval rating, not that high in the Big Ten. It wasn't that high. Number two, I'm hearing they wanted him in the Bears CEO because the Big Ten wants to play some Big Ten championships in the city of Chicago. I know they have a good spot right now in Indianapolis. Really good spot. I think it's a good spot. But the Big Ten thinks that they can make some more money if they have some championship games and some sporting events, whatever you want to call it, in the city of Chicago. So that's going to be a video idea tomorrow. I think it's going to turn out really, really good. I just wanted to give you guys an inside track on that. And remember, whenever you watch my regular videos, if you think you have a good video idea, please leave a comment about it, because this is the off season. I call it grind season. College football fans lose interest. It happens. It's part of it. It's part of the roller coaster cycle. So what I've been doing is I've been taking comments out of my comment section and making videos, and it's making the off season a little bit easier. So if you think you have a good video idea, please leave it in the comment section. And I actually came up with a name for those group of people. And the name that I came up with is the Get It Gang, because you guys get it. You know what we're doing here, and you're giving me good video ideas, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Awesome stuff, guys. And whenever the merchandise store gets put up, and I think Joey's going for either the end of next week or the beginning of the week after, we're going to have the checklist shirts, hat, sunglasses, thick skin, all that stuff, the checklist. We're going to have those shirts, and we'll have Get It Gang shirts just for you guys. And we'll try to figure out some other taglines that we can put out there. But those two shirts for sure when we come out with the merchandise store, so keep your eyes out on that. Well, it looks like Clint lost his Wi-Fi for good, so he's not going to come back on here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up early. But I still had a good time, guys. I really, really did. This Clint Foster, you really need to go check out his YouTube channel. He's a really, really funny guy. I greatly enjoy the work that he's done. And the awesome thing about being a college football YouTuber right now is that there's a big-time community, big time. And I've basically become friends with every college football YouTuber, content creator that I, watch. I've watched him, now I'm friends with him. It's crazy. Whenever I first started going to Bluetooth, I never knew that I would have met, hung out with, know in person, be friends with all these people that I was watching at the time. So I'm really, really blown away. And it's just an awesome community that we have here on YouTube. Awesome stuff. And Clint Foster is part of that community. Anyways, guys, we're going to wrap it up early. Appreciate you guys stopping by. On the way out, make sure to hit the like button. Very, very important. And even if you're watching a replay of this, hit the like button. It still helps the YouTube algorithm. More videos coming tomorrow. Might not do a live show. We'll see. My schedule's been hectic here recently. I have a new phone, so that has helped. I now have a new phone. But problem with that is my intro didn't transfer. So, yeah, I'm going to have to redo an intro. So hopefully I come up with something really, really awesome. But you know what? Maybe that's for the best, because that intro, it's kind of dated. It's a little bit old. Even the teams in the Power 5, I didn't add, Cincinnati, BYU, UCF, and Houston in the intro. So maybe it was a sign that it was time to do a new intro. So keep your eyes and ears out for the new intro. It will be coming in the next week or so. Hope you guys like it. I might do a couple of intros and take a vote on that and see how that goes. Anyways, guys. Y'all have a great rest of your Monday night. I know it's the beginning of the work week, but you know what? Friday will be here before we know it. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night, and Going to Bluetooth is out.